So let me get to grooming though, because another argument that has validity that I want to give breath to is this morally pure take that I kept seeing, morally lucky, and get the fuck over it. Get the fuck over it. Like, let it go, because none of us are morally lucky or morally pure. Some of us get to that point earlier. Some of us have more venues to jump off of the shit earlier. But at the end of the day, we are all raised in a white supremacist, capitalist, homophobic, imperialist patriarchy. All of us. All of us. None of us are without that residue. We all grew up watching the same shit. We all participated or passively watched the same toxic behavior. We played with dolls if you were girls and trucks if you were boys. Like, all the things they do to us as children as a part of the hegemony of this nation. Can't speak outside of here, but it is global. All of us did that. And it lends itself to certain behaviors and attitudes, perspectives. And I'm coming back. God damn it. But let's talk about it though. So I've talked about Eduardo Bonilla Silva's concept of white habitus a bunch. And to explain it, essentially there is a set of environmental factors that are in place in most white spaces and communities that seek to reproduce a passive engagement and adherence to white supremacy. Most white people in this country do not have close relationships with non-white people. The country is segregated in that way. And so what that means is you are learning and understanding about BIPOC experiences and realities through a white filter that is going to very much lend itself to negative interpretations of those things. And so what that gives us is that gives us colorblind racism, right? That makes it so when your uncle or your friend's dad starts doing racist shit, you don't see anything wrong with it. That's a normal thing that happens in your community, which means that when things are escalated and elevated to like more overtly racist shit, your resistance to that, even though you've been hearing your whole life, this whole thing that it's not a choice, is bullshit. Everybody who has participated in any type of conservative, racist, whatever activity knows you're not supposed to be racist. You do it anyway. Now, I get why you do it, because you're conditioned to do it, but this idea that you were just tricked into fucking posting swastikas on Twitter, when you were 15 by some nefarious mind control from amazing atheists is bullshit. I don't know if it's nature at all. I mean, but it depends on how you can understand nature. I don't think anybody's naturally racist or whatever. I think your environment can nurture you into that, and then it becomes a reflexive and natural reflex of how you behave. Is there a syndrome involved there? Yes, but you have agency. So, but how does that work though? So there's a book I may have brought up. It's one of my favorite books on masculinity in terms of like explaining the reproduction of patriarchal behavior and toxic gender performance in young boys and men. It's by author CJ Pascoe. It's called Dude, You're an F-Slur. I take no pride in the title, not my book, but I understand what is being got at. And so Pascoe went and did like an immersive ethnographic research project in a couple of high schools in the Northwest. Pascoe in her research came up with a concept she called the F-slur discourse. And the F-slur is the F-slur. I feel like I don't need to say the F-slur. And what she talks about is how she's getting at how certain types of gender performances for young boys that are toxic and harmful to others are compulsory. It's not that everybody, like the boys don't just come up and say, I'm going to be a women hating He-Man misogynists. You know, they don't just start with Andrew Tate, right? They start with benign jokes in high school. They start by saying, as a joke to their girlfriend in class, go make me a sandwich. It starts like that. It starts in the locker room. If you were ever in a sports locker room, you heard and experienced some really toxic patriarchal stuff just kind of passively floating around. And the thing that Pascal gets into that is important for people to engage with is that the participation is compulsory because people don't want to be pushed out of community. Yes, it happens well before high school. It starts in little boys, but you don't want to be put out of community. She called it the F word discourse because the irony, and the men in here can speak to this. Like, I don't know what it is now in school, right? Because I'm hoping that the Z's and the alphas are a little better than we were as millennials and Xers. But the phrase is "at gay with the homies" that I've seen, right? Which is, and I remember this vividly, especially with some of the white boys that I played football with. They would constantly participate in forced quasi-homoerotic activity as a joke. You know what I'm saying? And they would do like stuff that made me really uncomfortable. You know, there were genitalia involved. There was a lot of moaning, a lot of unwarranted and unwelcome nudity. No homo, pause, sus, etc. I figured it was still a thing. And the mind fuck is they don't engage with how that is still homophobic, because in the moment, in the space, and here's a key word, it's a bonding practice. It is a method through which these boys challenge, affirm, and appreciate each other's appropriate performance of gender masculinity. And what happens is, after you've participated in that long enough, when you actually engage with having to make decisions or act upon biases against queer people or against women or against Black people, which I'm getting to, you've already reduced your faculties of how to not do that shit. That's the grooming. You've dehumanized the person who actually lives that experience to a bonding practice between you and other appropriately performing gendered men. To say that there is no grooming of boys to behave in the way that we then punish them for as they become adults is false. And that is a problem. And that requires a more nuanced engagement of these issues than we often offer, because the nuance is not algorithmically optimized. And so in a different world where FD continues his PhD, I was going to take the F word discourse and extrapolate it to the N word discourse. Because what I've noticed is that the same bonding, like the same depersonalized homophobia and misogyny that boys practice to affirm masculinity and gender within their circles happens with white people around race within their circles. And so what you see, I posted about this a while ago, maybe one of my first ever little viral tweets. You know, you have seen, if you've been on Twitter or on social media for any amount of time, you can count on every month a white kid says the N-word on TikTok, on YouTube, on, I don't know, Tiny Chat. I don't know what the kids use, but you know, it's going to be a 10 to 13-year-old kid, white kid, usually a girl, but often little boys, for fun. Apart from Black people, they're going to do something really overtly racist for fun within their space, away from Black people. 80% of the time, they're just going to do some racist shit for fun. It's like, it doesn't even serve a purpose. It's just a bonding ritual. Hey, we're all white, right? Yeah. All right, so we're all racist, right? Sure, just don't tell anybody and don't share this in the group chat and make sure this doesn't end up on TikTok.
You dark ass nigger. Dark ass chocolate bar. Get the fuck out of here.
No, let me try to fucking get anybody, because nobody likes niggers.
No one likes niggers.
And of course it always does. And when they get caught, what do they say? I don't have a racist bone in my body. It was just a joke. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. You know, yada, yada, yada.
Rosing was arrested Sunday morning after verbally and physically assaulting UK student Kyla Spring. Rosing bonded out of jail Monday evening. Her attorney told us she was apologetic, humiliated, and withdrawing from UK. She would also be getting treatment.
In a paradoxical sense, they're telling the truth, because in their heads, it's not about the actual black people or brown people or indigenous people that are being hurt by their words. This is just a funny thing they do with their friends. We just say the N-word and make fun of black women and black people and watermelon jokes. So again, that is grooming, because once you've done that throughout your childhood, like, because if they had any engagement that there were consequences to that shit, they wouldn't put it in their group chats. They wouldn't do it in public. But they want attention. They want to seem cool. And this is not to like dismiss from all the actual realities of racism, right? Like, we're in a very diversity and inclusion conversation right now. All right. So give me grace where I'm talking about it in the space it exists.